Eons ago, all men lived at a bare subsistence level. The disappointing thing is that for all the advances of science and technology, hundreds of millions are still living at a bare subsistence level and are suffering in poverty and misery. The good life still seems to be eluding the vast majority of mankind. But I think we are reshifting our focus now. As we use the advances that we have wrought, we can undoubtedly do a lot for these people locked in poverty and misery. There's a communication satellite. I think it can do more to alleviate poverty, misery, and hunger than any other device that has come out of the space program. But the interesting thing is, I doubt that anyone would have seen this possibility when the first primitive communication satellite went into orbit.
The communication satellite. It was born in 1960, a fascinating idea full of promise. ATSF, a satellite designed to answer questions about communicating from space, to test ways that space communications could benefit us all. Built for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration by Fairchild Industries, ATSF was engineered to carry aloft more than 20 technical experiments, including 2 major projects with far-reaching impact. We use communications in many ways, some that we're barely aware of. For an air passenger, safety depends on how well the pilot can navigate, how well he can receive instructions from ground-based controllers. Crossing an ocean means long stretches out of contact as radio signals fade with the distance. A solution to this old problem may come from one of the technical experiments on the ATSF spacecraft. A study of how satellites could be used to keep the radios working. Tomorrow, a satellite may provide these aircraft with radio service and computer data links for navigation and control, no matter how far from land they may be. As more and more aircraft fill the skies over the oceans, this could prove a vital key to safety. At times, the uncontrollable hand of nature plays cruel tricks on man. A single hurricane unleashes more violent energy than all the bombs ever created or used. Today, with weather satellites, forecasters can observe a storm from the time of its birth and give early warning to threatened areas. But there's a shortcoming in the system. Low-flying weather satellites can only transmit their photos once every few hours when they pass over a ground station. Another experiment aboard ATS offers a way around that problem. The weather satellites continually send their photos to ATS. will relay to the ground on a non-stop 24-hour basis. It could lead to another major advance in warnings of an approaching storm. These and other technical experiments aboard ATS are yielding valuable new data for the scientists. Yet the most impressive part of the satellite's work lies in improving the lives of individual people.
It is understandable that in the early stage of communication satellites, every effort was made to keep the space element, the satellite itself, as simple and as light and as cheap as possible, and to put all the problems and all the complexity and all the money into the ground stations. This resulted in ground stations costing several $1 million apiece. The desire arose to develop a system where more power was in the satellite itself so that the ground stations could become cheaper.
During the 1960s, far-thinking minds of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center conceived of a satellite so powerful that it would need no ground station at all, so powerful that its beam could be picked up by a simple antenna at each school or home. The Rocky Mountains, where tall peaks have kept children from the joys and rewards of classroom television that can bring knowledge of the greater world beyond the granite barriers. Appalachia, where landlines for bringing television from the big cities would cost far more than impoverished communities can afford. Alaska, where villages are cut off by hundreds of snow-banked miles. To remote communities in each of these places, the Rocky Mountains, Appalachia, and Alaska, ATS promises to replace the boredom of wasted hours with the delight and excitement of visiting Sesame Street. At each school or community center included in this experimental program, the people erect a simple antenna to receive broadcasts directly from the satellite. The truly dramatic part of ATS, this promise of bringing isolated people a new contact with the educational opportunities around them. With the unique two-way capability of this satellite, the children can take an active part, speaking up, asking questions of the television teacher. Summer 1975. The satellite begins a slow journey around the world to India. For the next year, it will be on loan to the Indian government. India, a nation of 500 million people, nearly all of them living in rural villages or outlying farms. For vast numbers, life is a daily struggle to survive. To these isolated people, it is an exciting day when the space age comes near at hand. Village craftsmen assemble the antenna that will bring pictures and voices from thousands of miles away via satellite. For people who have never seen a television set, ATS offers the hope contained in educational broadcasts on farming, health, animal care, and other pathways to a better future for themselves and their children.
We are now coming into an era of space research that one might call the humanitarian era, in which man will use the tools of space and the capability of space to do things for the good of society. It will be an era when we will set out to solve many of the problems that we haven't been able to solve in any other way. Maybe this is what the 1970s and maybe the 1980s will be remembered for. The use of the enormous assets of satellites for the good of mankind. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. Communication satellites may be the link for bringing together people for a better understanding. They will help us overcome centuries of the poor starving for knowledge as well as for food. I believe these satellites will show us new ways to tackle all the many problems that oppress us all, rich and poor alike. The potential benefits of space are promised to all of the world's people.